Hi everyone, happy Friday. So today our goal is to draw conclusions based on reading maps because there's going to be 2 to 3 maps on the final. And we're also going to be going over the differences and similarities between how Islam spread across different parts of Africa. So please realize that Africa is a continent, not a single country. In fact, Africa is the second largest continent in the world. It is home to 53 countries and thousands of ethnic groups, many of which have their own language and culture. So if we look at this political map, we see about 53 countries. And then if we were to divide that up into all the different ethnic groups, wow, right? There are thousands. All of these different regions represent a different ethnic group. So it is really unfair and unwise to make generalizations about all Africans based on one region alone, right? Like, it's incredibly diverse. Given that, Africa is still commonly divided into 5 political and cultural regions: North, East, Southern, Central, and West Africa. The ones we focused on most in our class was West Africa, and like the Mali Empire, and then the East African city-states, which we're talking about a little today as well. So remember how Islam spread. Islam was born in the Middle East, particularly the city of Mecca, and then it will spread right into other parts of the Middle East and North Africa. In North Africa, it spreads through military conquest. The Arabs actually invade North America or North Africa and take over take it from the Byzantine Europeans. But in West Africa and East Africa, Islam is going to spread through trade routes, and we'll talk about those true trade routes next. And we're going to focus on Islam's impact on Africa because the spread of Islam was the most influential religion in the medieval period for 2 reasons: because it increased trade and it increased education in all the places it spread. And Africa becomes a major part of 2 trans-regional trade routes. We have the Trans-Saharan trade in West Africa, which is a sand-based route. And then we have the Indian Ocean trade route, which is a sea-based route. So let's focus on West Africa. Islam enters Africa through trade with the North African Berbers, right? We know that when the Arabs come in, they are able to invade and actually settle in North Africa, creating a very Islamic area. But West Africa is never invaded by Arabs. They never invade that far. And instead, North African Berbers converted to Islam, then brought Islam to West Africa slowly through the Trans-Saharan trade routes. So please know that North African Berbers are actually native to North Africa. And conversion to Islam in West Africa was peaceful and voluntary. And now we're going to look at a Trans-Saharan map. Please know a similar map will be on the final. Go ahead and try. Make sure, though, that you focus on the legends so you understand what all the symbols mean, and also be aware of the compass so you know your directions. Oh, right. The Trans-Saharan trade routes. This is an exchange of goods across the Sahara Desert. Camels were used to cross the Sahara Desert to bring gold and slaves from West African empires like Mali up north in exchange for salt, which was more scarce in West African areas. So I do want to remind you of something that happens. So when a foreign culture arrives, let's do an example of in America, right? So in the Americas, the Christianity comes, right? A foreign culture arrives, and Native Americans can react in multiple ways. They can 100% accept Christianity and abandon their old ways. They can 100% reject Christianity and stick to their own ways, or they could do syncretism, which is mixing a little bit of both Christianity and their old Native American traditions. So, and a good example of syncretism in America is Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos. This is a Mexican holiday, which is a blend of Mesoamerican ritual, European religion, and Spanish culture. Because it's highly Catholic, right? It's a part of the Catholic tradition in Mexico in particular, but it also demonstrates some of the Spanish culture influence. So this is a great example of religious syncretism. And there's similar thing is going to happen with Islam, okay? So when Islam is introduced to Africa, the native Africans can decide how to react. They can 100% accept Islam and abandon their old ways. They can 100% reject Islam and stick to the old ways. But what we see more often is a syncretism, a mixing of both religions together. And this remixing is what made Ibn Battuta, like, he couldn't believe it. So remember, Ibn Battuta was from Tangier, which is in North Africa. And so his Islam was a lot more strict. And so when he saw West African traditions, when he went to the Mali Empire, he calls it disgusting ridiculous, right? If he was making a modern day review, he would say 1 out of 5 would not recommend. But we know that his viewpoint is really biased and frankly ethnocentric, right? He thought his version of Islam was the best way, and anyone who mixed their African traditions was doing something bad. Okay, now that we've talked about West Africa, let's move on to the East Africa, the Swahili civilization. So the Swahili civilizations were a bunch of independent city-states, each with their own rulers and very different cultures. They all are similar in that they got rich off of being part of the Indian Ocean Trade Network. This is the Indian Ocean Trade Network, as you can see. And you can see that East Africa is right here in these different city-states, and it connects with, the Middle East, India, China, and Southeast Asia. So the Indian Ocean trade was the dominant network of trade in the post-classical period. All the most famous travelers in the world in this period used this route, including Marco Polo, Ibn Battuta, and Zheng He. And how did the Indian Ocean monsoons make trade possible? So the monsoon winds were huge. Arab and Indian ships used monsoon winds to sail south to the Swahili coast from November to March. But then the wind would change direction from July to September, and that's when their ships could return home. So because the monsoon winds were so reliable in terms of their wind changing direction, people could really easily plan out where they're going to visit and where they're going to go and use the wind to carry them there. So here's a map. Go ahead and be ready to analyze and answer some questions about it. Okay, the last thing I would like to talk with you about is the Swahili language. The Swahili language is perfect evidence of syncretism or blending of different cultures and languages. So when Arab merchants came to East Africa to trade, Arab culture blended with East African culture to create Swahili. Swahili language is a combination of a primarily African Bantu language with some Arabic and some Indian words. So there's lots of evidence of syncretism in Swahili clothing. Take a look to a moment at all these different types of Swahili clothing, and you can see how some Africans were very influenced by Islam, right? This is what an Arab trader might wear. This looks very similar to that. But some Swahili clothing was not influenced by Islam, right? We see a little bit more traditional African dress in some of this picture, which shows that not everyone completely accepted Islam as well. Some people rejected it for their own African identity. All right, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about focusing on one city-state. So there was a city-state called Kilwa, and they created a sultanate, which is like a little kingdom basically of all of these different city-states at some point. And it was very much a mixture of many different cultures, right? Their main languages were Swahili and Arabic, and their main religions were Islam and traditional African religions. So this is the last map I would like to show you. Go ahead and answer the questions. And what you'll notice is that Southeast Asia really converted to Islam. So why? All right, that was it. That's all I have to review with you. So next, I want you to know you should complete your number 51 final study guide before the final, because the final is open note. The multiple choice section is going to be based off of the study guide. For example, pages 7 and 8 are the most helpful. If you answer these questions from from 1 to 7, that's going to really help you do well on the final because the multiple choice is based off of these short answer questions. And when your study guide is due depends on when your exam is. So here are the dates so that you know when your study guide is due. And that's it. Best of luck. I believe in you. Have a great day. Bye.